On the side of Highway 93, about 40 miles outside Phoenix, Arizona, there once stood a cheap roadside stop called the Desert View Motel. It wasn't anything special, just 16 rooms, a neon sign that buzzed through the night, and a pool that hadn't seen water since the 1960s. But for decades, the motel carried a secret. From the outside, it was just another pit stop in the desert. But police files, long buried in archives, suggest something else. Between 1953 and 1978, 15 people vanished from the Desert View Motel. Not just missing, they were last seen alive inside the same place. The same room, Room 6. Desert View opened in 1952, owned by a man named Clifford Hensley and his wife, Margaret. It was clean, affordable, and close to the highway. Families stopped in on their way to California. Truckers pulled in for the night. Salesmen stayed there for weeks at a time. But almost immediately, employees noticed something wrong with Room 6. Housekeepers complained of flickering lights. They said light bulbs popped one after another, as if the wiring couldn't handle the energy. Others reported cold drafts, sharp bursts of icy air even in the middle of the Arizona summer when the outside temperature climbed to 115 degrees. And then came the whispers. Guests wrote in complaint logs about hearing voices in the walls. At first, the staff dismissed it as thin insulation, but then came the disappearances. 1953, a salesman from Illinois, last seen checking into Room 6. His briefcase was found inside. The bed slept in, but he was gone. 1958, a young couple on their honeymoon. Their car was still in the lot, luggage in the closet, but the room was empty. 1962, a drifter traveling cross-country. Room key on the nightstand. Room locked from the inside. No sign of him. Over and over, the same pattern repeated. But the owners refused to shut the motel down. Instead, they told staff to never talk about Room 6. And yet, everyone in town knew the Desert View became infamous. Locals gave it a nickname, the Vanishing Room. Out of all the guests who entered Room 6, only one man ever came back to tell the story. His name was Harold Knox, a traveling salesman, staying there in the spring of 1964. In a recorded interview, one of the few surviving pieces of evidence in the county archives, Knox describes what happened that night.
I turned the TV off around midnight. The air conditioner wasn't working, so I left the window open. At some point, I woke up. The room felt wrong, freezing cold. My breath was visible. When I reached for the lamp, the walls, God help me, the walls were wet, not damp, soaking. The wallpaper was peeling and water dripped onto the carpet. I thought there was a leak, maybe a pipe had burst, but then I saw the bathroom door. It opened by itself, and something stepped out. It wasn't a person, not really. It looked like the outline of a man, but solid black, like a shadow standing upright. It moved toward me. I couldn't breathe. I swear, I felt it pressing down on my chest, crushing me. I ran. I don't remember how I got the door open, but I did. When I looked back, the shadow was standing at the window, watching me.
Knox refused to ever return to the motel. Within months, he was dead in a car accident. Locals whispered he hadn't escaped Room 6 at all. It had just waited for him. By the mid-1970s, the disappearances became impossible to ignore. In 1978, a family of 3 checked into Room 6. John and Rebecca Lewis, and their 6-year-old daughter, Emily. The motel manager called police. Their car was still parked outside. Their luggage was still in the room. The beds were unmade. but the family was gone. When officers entered, they noticed immediately that room 6 was colder than the rest of the motel. The desert heat outside was blistering, but inside, you could see condensation on the windows. On the carpet, investigators found large, dark stains. Later testing confirmed it was human blood. Behind the headboard, scratched into the wall, were strange symbols, circles intersecting with lines, repeated over and over. One officer described the sound of muffled screaming coming from inside the walls, though no one else reported hearing it. The family was never found, and within a week, the Desert View Motel shut its doors for good. For 20 years, the motel sat abandoned. Locals avoided it. Vandals spray-painted most of the walls, but strangely, no graffiti was ever found inside room 6. In 1999, a group of urban explorers broke in and recorded their visit with a camcorder. Their footage, later confiscated by police, was described in case notes. As the group approached room 6, the door opened on its own. Inside, the air was icy. Their breath fogged in front of the camera. On the recording, faint whispers can be heard. "Stay with us." Then, chaos. The camera shakes violently. One of the explorers screams, "It's pulling me under!" The last 3 minutes of tape are static. Of the 4 who entered, only one returned. His name was never released, but police described him as catatonic, unable to speak. He spent the rest of his life in a psychiatric facility. What was happening in room 6? Paranormal researchers believe it was a thin place, a location where the barrier between worlds is weak, allowing something to pass through. Others claim the motel was built on cursed land, possibly a forgotten burial site. Skeptics argue the disappearances were the work of a killer, maybe even the motel staff, who used room 6 as a cover-up. But no bodies, no murder weapons, and no clear suspects were ever found. Even the FBI briefly examined the files in the early 1980s. Their conclusion? Unsolved, inconclusive. The Desert View Motel was demolished in 2005 after a suspicious fire. Nothing remains but cracked asphalt and desert weeds. But truckers on Highway 93 still report strange things near mile marker 41. Cars stalling, radios filling with static, a sudden drop in temperature. Some even claim they see a neon sign glowing faintly in the desert night. A vacancy sign, and below it, room 6.